You're listening to the Trade Show Insights Podcast, Season 15, Episode 11. I'm your host and exhibit marketing strategist, Marlis Arnold, bringing you tools to improve your exhibit results. On today's episode, a rebroadcast of our weekly virtual lunch in the Exhibit Marketers Cafe, we're joined by Junte Delane to talk about future-proofing your brand. I am going to now bring on our special guest, Junte Delane, and he is a digital marketing strategist. He is the founder of Digital Brand Institute, and he is the former senior brand manager for the University of Southern California. He also has worked with many brands, including Coca-Cola, Sony, Paramount Pictures, Verizon, and I could go on and on. And then one other thing he may not realize I know about him is he recently completed his pilot's license. So congratulations on that.
Thank you, Marlies. Thank you.
So it's great to have you here today.
Yeah, great to be here.
We're going to talk about future-proofing your brand. So tell us a little bit about what exactly do you mean by future-proofing your brand?
Yeah, well, essentially, we all know what the world is going through, right? The greatest pandemic in our lifetime. And it's, of course, affecting many businesses. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, you are obviously affected. And so when I talk about future-proofing your digital brand, it's something that I do with plenty of my clients at Digital Delane, which is a full-service agency. And we essentially focus on building a brand that would outlast the pandemic. You know, providing my clients the tips, tricks, and insights on helping them to focus on adapting their business model, making any pivots, things like that. So future-proofing your brand is all about making sure that you're leveraging your internal assets, right? Obviously, you don't have a room to scale at this point. It's all about collaborating with other potential partners. And it's all about making sure that you do what you can to stay top of mind during this time, because even if your target audience isn't necessarily in the buying market now, you ultimately want to stay top of mind with them so that once this thing boils over, you would be top of mind and you can go ahead and reach out and engage with them during that time. So those are all a couple key points when focusing on how to future-proof your brand.
Well, and we're going to break down several of those points that you just addressed. And go ahead too, anybody, if you want to put a comment in a question in the comments, go ahead and do that. And we'll ask those as we go along as well. Okay. But so as B2B marketers, which is what most of our crowd here is, how do you do that whole, sensitivity and personal touch? How can you do that in an appropriate way in a situation like this?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, the old adage is people like to do business with people, and it's similar in the B2B industry as well, right? And so I think businesses want to do business with other businesses that are aligned with some of their ideologies, with some of their mission, values, and so on. And so if you're able to express the effort to understand what's going on in society that could be affecting the lives of, leadership in these organizations, or even trickling down to their specific audience base, I think it's going to build a better relationship in this environment. And so some tricks and tips that I would focus on as a B2B company is focusing on, again, establishing the core values of your organization, and also providing resources for other organizations, for other target organizations that you have in mind. Because ultimately, during this time, as a brand, as a business, you're looking for the best ways to position yourself in this current market. So by simply being a an example or a resource, I think is one way that you're able to do it. And this could be simply reaching out from a business perspective to see, how they're faring in this industry, in the market, and also some tools that have helped you as a business. You can pretty
Mm.
much impart that information and give them that resource. And so those are one ways that you can still begin to build those relationships during this time.
Well, so a lot of that it comes down to having personal one-on-one conversations with your
Exactly.
your clients at this point in time too. And I like how you said, reaching out person to person, not thinking of it as business to business so much. And I know that's what I've tried to pick up the phone and call some of my clients during this time as well. And
Hmm.
just, hey, how you doing? How, and especially if I know they have kids or,
Right.
how you dealing with the kids being home and all that kind of thing. So you're right. It really, if you can reach them on that personal level, it really does take the relationship to a whole different level.
For sure. I mean, I have clients that are executives and they're also moonlighting as teachers, right? Because their children aren't in school, and so those are some challenges that I think could just be they could be brought up, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's sort of going against the formal way of communicating, but ultimately, if your target audience or your client has children, that's probably something that they're dealing with, and it's difficult when understanding or considering what they're going through at the time period, and then focusing on ways that you can essentially help at least to build a bridge or to break that ice, because I think it's going to provide a better relationship foundation. So I would highly recommend that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, I know you're big on brand storytelling. Tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about how to use that tool at this point in time to really relate as well.
Yeah. Well, again, it goes back to again people knowing who you are, your mission, your values, and so on, and then telling your brand story as to why you're even in business and how your business is impacting the lives of your target audience. And if you haven't figured that out, then you certainly are going to need to start to focus, especially during this time,
Mm,
on establishing your brand story. And essentially, it's your why. Why are you in business? Why did you hire this particular employee? Why have you developed this initiative? Why have you established this strategic partnership? Why are you even at this event? Right, so on and so forth. So it's important to map out your brand, map out your why, so that you can convey that through your brand story.
well, so again, it goes back to humanizing and making it personable. So, so how do we deal with talking about how we stand out from the competition without going negative? Like the
Mm.
politicians always do.
That's a whole nother story. So,
Yeah.
what I can say about that is, if you are a B2B business and you're looking at trying to stay top of mind, sort of, focus on reaching out to your target audience, and so on. It's important to include your personality, because ultimately your personality is going to give you the reach that you need. And here's what I mean by that. And particularly on social media, we know that the algorithms reward personality. So if you have direct
Mm,
promotional or salesy communication on social media, you'll notice that your organic reach won't be as great. But
right.
if you are focused on more personality, then you're going to have more organic reach, and then you're going to have people reacting to that post with a bunch of personality, right? And what happens there is you start to get more organic reach because more people start to communicate, and once people start to communicate and engage, their network are informed, so on and so forth. So you actually have a significant benefit for being more personal if you are a very buttoned up B2B brand. If you sort of relax on your brand voice a bit, start more conversations around different topics that have to do with your brand, you'll start to notice your organic reach. So providing that personality in terms of your brand voice to your target audience is going to be beneficial because you're going to better reach your target audience.
So do you have some good, I know I'm kind of throwing this at you here,
No
but do
worries,
you
no worries.
have some examples of some, especially B2B, but like any companies that you can give just as examples of what's a good, like you said, showing your personality as a brand?
Yeah, I think a good case study would be the Wendy's roast. If you're not familiar with that, obviously Wendy's was, sort of a blah brand. It's very vanilla in a sense,
Yeah.
and they started to add more personality to their Twitter feed, and they started basically roasting everyone from their competitors to people who engage with their timeline, so on and so forth. And they actually had so much engagements that it brought in more traffic into the stores. People who didn't engage with Wendy's earlier on did so just for the entertainment value, and that
Yeah.
obviously kept Wendy's top of mind, which brought more people into the stores. And so they switched it up a little bit during the pandemic by going from roasting to toasting, which basically
Mm.
means that they flipped it and they said, okay, instead of roasting people, we're going to talk about the good things that people are doing in the community, highlighting those different things, and then rewarding them with free nuggets and stuff like that, right? So I think that's a great
Ah.
example of how you should leverage a brand voice. And if your brand voice didn't have any personality before, you can take some cues as long as it's aligned with your brand, from Wendy's and their roast, and apply it to yours. And I think the ultimate lesson here was Wendy's went from servitude to attitude, right? So normally when you think about social media, you'd automatically assume from a B2B perspective, overall, you'd automatically assume it's all about thought leadership or customer service, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go from focusing on customer service only to having a little bit of attitude, having some personality, you're going to notice more organic reach. And so that's important because nowadays we know that when on social profiles and accounts, people want to be entertained, right? So
Right.
they aren't necessarily engaging with a brand simply to get their brand information, right? They want to be entertained. So it's important that you go from that servitude to attitude, and not only use your social channels as a way of communicating customer service transactions, but focus on providing some type of value in terms of attitude, personality, and entertainment.
Well, and I love how you were talking about how Wendy switched to doing the toasting and praising people for what they were doing. I'm sure that got lots of attention because people are, everybody loves that kind of thing, and it probably got a lot more shares and likes as well. So,
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
so let's talk a little bit. You had mentioned earlier about leveraging your existing assets. So talk a little bit more about, because I think probably a lot of people, when you start, you may have seen I put Matt's comment up there about
Mhm.
he's going to start roasting people. So we should all look out, right? But if you're looking at this and you're thinking, oh my goodness, now all of a sudden I got to create all this new stuff and figure out what my personality is. How could you take some existing assets and use those to your advantage?
Yeah. So if you're struggling, if you're, either stuck on that hamster wheel of creating content for content's sake, or you just don't have time to create content, my mantra is work smarter, right? And one of the
Mm,
ways that you're able to work smarter is by repurposing some of your existing content. So if you start off with a blog post or a video, let's say, for example, you take this live stream and we transcribe that live stream, we make that transcription into a blog post, we repurpose some of the quotables, some of the you know gym dropping, mic dropping moments, and create Instagram quote images, statistics, things like that,
mhm.
from this main piece of content, which is, of course, the live stream. So that's one way that you can focus on repurposing your content. The other way is to take a look at what content has worked for you in the past, meaning that what content has brought in the most leads, has gotten the most views, and so on. And when you think about and when you analyze that, you also want to focus on the content that's actually converting, right? So you may not necessarily need to
Mm,
look specifically at the vanity metrics of, oh, this blog post or this video had the most views, but it's more about which video, which blog post actually converted. Because what you can do
makes
here is
sense.
once you understand what video is converted, you can then beef up that content, right, to draw more eyeballs and get more views on that content, right? So it all starts off with that pre-existing asset of the blog post, the video, the live stream, and so on. And then, of course, most of us are too busy to continuously create content, right?
Right.
So my focus here is I just simply batch content because consider, for all those who bake, right? You know that you would never ever bake one cookie at a time, right?
Yeah.
You put all the cookies on a baking pan and then bake them all at once. You do the same thing for your content, right? And that's naturally going to help. So, if you're planning to do videos, you may want to batch some of your video creation. You may want to batch some of your blog posts and articles that you're writing
Hmm.
during a time when you have complete focus and ability to create content. So those are my few recommendations on how you can use your internal assets to create content and to stay top of mind during this time.
Well, and you talked about repurposing. It took me several months of doing virtual lunch before I finally woke up to, oh yeah, I should repurpose these on my podcast as well. So yeah, it is true. It's like you
Yeah,
create it once and use it in multiple places, multiple times. So,
exactly.
well, you had also mentioned collaboration. And I
Mhm.
think, especially for the trade show and events industry right now, I think we're really looking to how can we all team up and support each other. So, what are some of your suggestions as far as collaborating to create content and to get that message out there?
Yeah, and that's a great question, and I think if you are in the trade show industry, you've leveraged trade shows in the past. Obviously, that's not the case anymore, right? So
Mm,
most of those events are either canceled or they're gone virtual. So when you think about that from a virtual standpoint, you're obviously able to do leverage more in the digital space than you may have in the physical space. So you would make sure that you have all of your lead generation funnels and so on and so forth together. And then you would also want to make sure that you are going above and beyond in terms of the sponsorship that you are booking, right? And so
mm,
my rule of thumb is it should be three times whatever the investment is for the sponsorship. The activations outside of that should be threefold,
mm,
right? And so that could be, creating Facebook ads as a part of your collaboration with that particular event. It could be activating some ambassadors, posting on social media, creating content around the event, so on and so forth. That would happen in the digital space. And then when it comes to just the general collaboration overall, obviously, some of our marketing budget is tight, right? We're tightening the belt.
right.
One of the ways that you're able to collaborate in during this time is by joining in with a partner that either provides an ancillary service
Hmm.
or as some type of strategic partner that you've worked with in the past, and then create co-branded campaigns. So these could
Mm,
be essentially Facebook ads that are co-branded, right? And just making sure that the final creative nicely showcases the way both brands are able to work together to help solve some type of challenge. Again, that's very important, right? This is
hmm.
not just, hey, this is a Facebook ad with two partners, but this is a
Right.
Facebook ad, right, that has a collaboration that can help meet your target audience's challenge. Right. So that's very important. And of course, you're basically splitting the ad spend down in half, and you're able to collect some of the data from your strategic partner and vice versa. right? So those are some
Hmm.
ways that you're able to focus on collaborations during this time. But most importantly, it's you want to make sure that you're working with the right partner in the digital space. So you may have a partner that has a great brick and mortar brand. You may be more advanced in digital. So you want to basically align yourself with someone that's equal on that field.
Mm.
In terms of you guys both having an advanced digital brand. That way, your co-branded campaign would be much more fruitful. So just consider those couple facts when looking at collaborating during this time.
Well, and that makes sense too, because otherwise, if you're not equally matched, then, if one of them is um, much more, what do I want to
Advanced, I guess.
say,
Yeah.
advanced, yeah,
Mhm.
advanced in the digital arena, then they would be carrying most of the weight.
Right.
So it makes sense that you find a company that's a good match that way. So, and note to everybody, if you're here at virtual lunch, this may be a good place to find some of those matches for your collaboration projects. So, well, if you have any last minute questions, go ahead and put those in the comments and we will
Mhm.
ask Jonte. But any final thoughts from you? Something maybe that we forgot to address during this interview?
No, I think ultimately this was great. Hopefully I provided you guys with a ton of value. Feel free to reach out to me and my agency, digitaldelane.com, if you have any questions or if you're looking for ways in which that you can navigate through this time. We've helped plenty of partners, even in the B2B space. People who have or brands that have a great brick and mortar but are looking to transition or create a go-to-market strategy, things like that, I certainly can be of assistance.
Sounds great. And we'll make
Mhm.
sure we get your web address in the show notes and the comments and everything as well. So
Great,
I don't see any last minute comments. So thank you so much,
of
Junte, for
course.
taking time out to be here for virtual lunch today. And thanks to everybody who joined us. We will be back again next Tuesday. We're going to take off the day after Labor Day, but we will be here next Tuesday. So we will see you then. And everybody, in the meantime, have a great week. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
You can find all the links mentioned during this interview in this episode's show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. And if you'd like to join us for an upcoming weekly virtual lunch, you'll find information on that at exhibitmarketerscafe.com/lunch. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like more, you can subscribe to the podcast and automatically receive future episodes on your chosen device. Simply search for Trade Show Insights in Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or virtually anywhere else that podcasts are found, and then click the subscribe button. Trade Show Insights is protected by the Creative Commons copyright license. You may feel free to share this recording with colleagues or embed it on your own blog as long as it's shared in its entirety and is not used for commercial purposes. To learn more, please see the link in the sidebar of the show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. Well, that's it for this episode of Trade Show Insights. Be sure to check out our show notes and archives at tradeshowinsights.com. You can also connect with me using the social media links or contact page on the site. I'm Marlis Arnold. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us next time for more tools to improve your exhibit results.